Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today in this video, I'm going to be talking about what actually happened to my bearded dragon, Ziggy. I did have her for a year and 3 months, so basically 15 months. And I had bought her from PetSmart. That was my biggest mistake. But I did buy her from there. And she was the only bearded dragon that was in the enclosure that I had picked her from. So I thought maybe since it was only her in one enclosure by herself, it would be okay and everything would be fine with her. Well, as I purchased her and I brought her home, the first night that I had her, I honestly did not think that she was going to make it, to be honest. I guess it was maybe because she was just in a new, surrounding, new environment, and she just wasn't used to everything. So I did, give her a few days to let her get used to the new environment, and she did. She did get used to it, and she did start acting normal. She did start eating, and everything was going really good for, basically the entire time as when she was younger. But I did start noticing some little issues when she got to about 7-8 months old. I did have to take her to the vet quite a few times. I did get a parasite check on her the first time I did take her to the vet, and she did have parasites, so they did give me a bunch of dewormers that I pretty much had to give to her for 5 days in a row. And then I had to give her 2 other ones, 2 out of 2 weeks. I had to give her another set of dewormers. She got over them parasites and she started acting normal. She started doing her regular basking, eating, pooping. I would give her lukewarm baths, soaks, whatever you want to call them. She was shedding normally. And then I just started noticing the older she got that certain things just wasn't doing that good. She pretty much did not poop that much anymore. She would go a few days without eating. I would try giving her her salads. I would try feeding her bugs. I would pretty much try everything I possibly could to get her to eat. I even had bought some of the Fluker's appetite stimulant to try to see if that could possibly help. And it did actually help. I did actually get some of that, and I mixed up some for her, and I had gave it to her. And she seemed like she was doing pretty good, and she would always get her appetite back. She would always want to start eating again. And normally the only days or whatever she would go without eating was maybe 2 or 3 days. But she would always start eating again. Moved her out of the room that she was in. I had moved her into my dining room because I figured, her seeing me more often, hearing noise and stuff like that, I figured, I could do a little bit more bonding and get her more used to me. So I did move her into my dining room, and she stayed in my dining room for pretty much the remainder of her time that she was here. And she done pretty okay for the first day or so. And then she went back into not wanting to eat, not acting normal. And so I just figured, it was coming from where I had moved her to a completely different area, and she was having to get used to it all over again. That everything, started going back good again. She was back to eating. She was back to basking, back to shedding. Pretty much everything that a bearded dragon does. And then she went into brumation December the 1st because it started getting more colder here. And sometimes at nights, it would even drop down into the 30s, the 20s. And so she did go into brumation. I had actually stopped feeding her and she had got the last bit of stool out before she went into brumation. So I figured, since she went to the bathroom, everything was going to be fine, and she would go into brumation, and when she come out of it, when it got warmer weather, she would be perfectly fine. But I was seriously mistaken about that, because when she did come out of brumation, she was kind of in and out of it. She wasn't full brumation. She was like partial, like brumation. She would go in it for a few days, a week, 2 weeks. She would come out. And then she would stay up for a few days to a week, and then she'd go back into brumation again. She kept constantly doing that from December to about the 1st of March. When she come out of brumation the 1st of March, I did actually get her to eat about 4 or 5 superworms. And she took them, no problem. And she did actually digest them. And she did poop them out. And everything was okay. And then I started noticing the next following week, I would offer her food, like her bugs, salad. She ate like 1 piece of lettuce out of her salad. And then the next few days, she wouldn't eat nothing. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe she's still coming out of brumation. Maybe she just needs more time to get back into, how things are supposed to go and digest and all that. So I really didn't think too much about it at that time. And then a week later, I fed her salad and her bugs again. And she ate another piece of lettuce, and that was all she would eat. She wouldn't eat nothing. And so I did, about 2 weeks in, I did actually have to start syringe feeding her. I did do the appetite stimulant, and I did do a probiotic, and I would also mix up some vegetables that they can eat. I would mix them and blend them up into like a slurry, and I would basically syringe feed her that. And she didn't like it. She didn't like me syringe feeding her, but it was better than me not doing nothing and her basically just wasting away and starving to death. I did actually give her a warm bath, and I did let her soak. And she did actually use the bathroom maybe about 1 time, and then she used it again like a few days later. Finally, around the end of March, I went in there and I checked on her, and she was still fine. She was still, in her cage. She was still basking some, but she started going back to her cold side, and she started like staying over there more. So I would let her stay on it for a little while, and then after an hour or two, I would pick her up and I would move her back to her basking area. And she would basically bask for like maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then she'd get up, she'd go back to her cold side. So it was constantly basking, not basking, eating, not eating, which was the 2nd of April. She's still not eating, still not wanting anything to eat. So I did fix her food, and I did have to syringe it to her. And she did end up going to the bathroom again a little bit, but it wasn't no stool. It was basically just water. And I guess that was from like the water and the syringe food that I was giving her. And so I thought, well, okay, she is at least going to the bathroom. So, this is better than nothing. And then the 4th, that morning, I got up, I went in there, and she was laying on her cold side. She seemed fine. She seemed normal. Just basically doing what she's been doing for like the past month. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll get her food and stuff ready, and I'll try to syringe feed it to her. And, at least she can have something on her stomach. And she actually had lost a lot of grams. Because when this first started, she was around 366 in grams. And I did weigh her, and she had lost down to 316. So she had started losing a lot of weight, and she just kind of her spine looked a little bit more protruded out, but I don't think that she had MBD, because all of her legs, her standing up, walking around, like, it was all normal. There was no, like, how when bearded dragon has MBD, they kind of have like bends and stuff in their, like, their legs, and all that was normal. So I don't think she had that. But later on, we got busy, and my parents had come over here, and I know my mom told me when they come over here that afternoon, they said, "Oh, Ziggy's out, she's basking." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, maybe, since she's basking, maybe she's doing better." So, we just let her bask. I left her alone, let her, do that, let her relax. And we went off, we started doing other things. And I come back home about 5:30 that evening, and I checked on her. She was still fine. She was still up on her thing basking, but I did start noticing that she had her mouth open. And so I thought, well, maybe it's just too hot and she's in here and she's gaping. And so I said, okay. So I walked off, and about 45 minutes later, I went back in there again to check on her, and she looked like she was having issues breathing. She had her mouth open, her beard was completely black, and it looked like she was basically, like she was gasping for breath, like she couldn't breathe. And I took her out, and I put her on my chest, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, you was fine earlier. What's going on with you? And when I had her right here on my chest, I was walking through the living room, and I was going to call the vet to see if I can get in as an emergency vet appointment. And she gasped real big for breath. And at first I thought she's got a respiratory infection, because I have seen other people on YouTube say that when they start doing that, they have a respiratory infection. So I did call the vet, and while I was on the phone with the vet, she convulsed and she started jumping. Like, she completely was laying on my chest, and she jumped out, and I had to do this and hold her to keep her up on my chest. And the whole time I was holding her up on my chest, she was gasping for air. And so the vet, they told me, they said, if you can get over here in 30 minutes, go ahead and bring her, and we'll put her in as an emergency appointment. So I didn't put her in nothing. I just basically put her on me and just held her, and I left. And when I finally did get over to the vet and I went in, I told the lady, I said, this is an emergency. She needs to be seen right now. I think she's got a respiratory infection or she's dying. So the vet, she took her. Automatically, I handed her over. She took her, and they took her to the back. I had to go and sit in the waiting area for about 15-20 minutes. And the nurse come out, she got me, she told me, come back here, that they needed to talk to me. So I went back to the room, and I sat in there and I waited, and the vet come in there, and they said they did oxygen on her for about 10 minutes, and that was not seeming to help. It was not doing anything for her. And so she told me, she asked me questions like what had been going on, how long it's been going on. So I told her. She basically told me that she was dying. Pretty much, she said that she was on basically on her last breathing, and she was going to pass away. And so they did let me spend some time with her. And I did get to spend about 20-25 minutes with her, just holding her, telling her, I loved her and I'd miss her and all that. But I did tell her if she had to let go, that it was okay for her to let go. I would understand it. I did actually think at one point when I was holding her, I did actually think she had died, because she took a really deep breath, and you could see her sides was like smushing in. And so I really did think she had died at that point. So I did get the nurse to go and check, and she said she was still breathing, barely. But she was pretty much still, she was on her way out. Said the best thing that I could do for her at this moment and at this time was basically to put her to sleep. The decision to put her to sleep. I really didn't want to. I did not really want to see her being like this either. So for her, and for her not to be suffering like without being able to breathe, I went ahead and I signed the paper, and I told him to go ahead and take her and put her down, to come over there to the vet. So she did meet me over there, and you know, she was there for me throughout the whole process of this going on. I was tore up. I was upset. I was crying. And I was glad, you know, to actually have, you know, my mom there at that time. And so we basically just had to wait. And they gave me 2 little cards. They did put her footprint on one of them, and they put a tail print on another one for me so I could have it as memories of her. Out in the box, and I drove home, and we ended up burying her in my backyard. And I just have, the other day, I did actually make a plaque for her, and I did put it on her grave. This has been the most hardest thing that I've ever dealt with. I've had a lot of animals in my past that has passed away and has died, but for me to have an animal and try to help it, try to, you know, figure out what's going on with it, and then I only have it for a year and then it just dies. I mean, the vet did say it was nothing that I did. It was not my fault or anything like that, but deep down, in a way, I still feel like I could have done something different. And I feel like if I would have got her to the vet more sooner, that she possibly would have been able to survive it. But because she didn't have no signs or symptoms of this, rather than just the other day, I didn't know. Like, you know, like I said, I just thought it was coming from her coming out of brumation, and she just hadn't got used and back into her normal routine. So that's really what I thought it was. And I had ordered her some dewormer from online. I had heard a lot of good things about this dewormer and saying it was safe for reptiles. And so I had ordered that, and I was supposed to get it that Friday, but I ended up having to have her put to sleep that Thursday. So I couldn't even give her none of that to try to see if that would help, which at this point, I really don't think it would have. She is in a better place now. I really do miss her. It really hasn't even felt real. Like, every time I walk through my dining room, you know, I constantly feel weird and strange because she's not in my dining room no more. She's not there. I can't just go up to her cage and look in and see her anymore. She's like, it's just gone. Look at anything, pictures, I would just start crying. It's been really hard for me. But I did just want to do this video and kind of give you like information and updates about what actually had happened to her. So please, if you do have anything to say in the comments, please don't be rude about it, because this has took a really big toll on me. And I know there's things I could have done different. I do know that. And I didn't think she was going to die. Like, I really didn't. I figured, I would still have a few months to another year with her, but this just happened really fast. Please do not be rude, and please do not sit there and say I'm an animal abuser, I'm an animal killer, because I try my best to make sure all of my animals that I have is taken care of and everything is okay with them. And if they are sick, I try my best to take care of them and make them feel better. It's just sometimes you just don't realize it until it's too late. Maybe in the future, maybe I will get another bearded dragon, but as of right now, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to keep the animals that I do have right now. But if in the future, if I ever do get another one, obviously I will share it on here. But right now, I'm just wanting to take all my time that I need to grieve over her still. And if you did like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and make sure you turn on your bell for notifications for when I upload. And I will see you in my next video.